Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to take a look at the Futaba DLPH-2, which stands for Dual Link Power Hub. Actually, it stands for Dual RX Link Power Hub, but it just doesn't sound the same. Anyway, it's a way of having multiple receivers and multiple batteries all connected into your model. Let's check it out. So let's start off by seeing what we get in the box. Okay. So here's the unit itself. There we go, so we see it's the dual battery support, battery 1, battery 2, RX1, RX2 as well. And I believe there's also 18 channels. We'll double check that in just a moment. Lightweight, this weighs 50 grams. There's a switch on the side for your voltage, 11.1, 7.4, 6.6. A few ports on the back there that correspond to two receivers already mentioned, channel 3 and S bus 2. Now interestingly as well, this DLPH-2 supports a gyro. It doesn't have a gyro built in, but you can plug a gyro into the back of it, which we'll also cover. That's one side. What else do we have? Some grommets to mount it with and screws. Thank you very much, Futaba. Switch, turn it on and off, and I'll cover that in a bit more detail in a moment. And then just the instruction manual. So let's talk about why you'd want to use a DLPH-2. Main reason, redundancy. In a nutshell, that's what it's about. It's about having two receivers in your model for extra redundancy, and also two batteries going into your model for extra redundancy as well. And then on top of that, this also supports a gyro, which is optional, which is the GYA553 gyro, which will just plug straight into the box, and then all your servos just go into the DLPH-2. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at actually setting this up. We're going to get it on the bench first, have a play around with it, and then we're going to get it in the model, and then we're going to fly with it as well. So here's a close-up of the unit for you, and just if you're wondering what size it is, I'm sure the specs are online, but just very quickly and roughly, 6 centimeters by 6, so 6x6 square. There we go. Lug's going out a bit further to 8 centimeters wide. So fairly small, fairly compact, weighing in at 50 grams. In the box you get the switch as well, which we saw earlier on. Just a very basic Futaba switch. Now I believe if this switch fails, the unit will still work. So if this fails in flight, the unit will still have power to it and still carry on working. So we'll simulate that later on. I'll pull the plug out, simulate failure, and we'll see if we still got power to this. So that's quite interesting, whereas other solutions, the batteries will go through the switches. Sorry, the batteries will go through the switch, so if the switch fails, you'll lose power. You get one of the Futaba pointers, not really sure why, but that's in there as well. Mounting grommets that we've already seen, and then a bunch of leads. There's 3 leads here. Nothing special about those, just straightforward leads. Okay, let's get some servos. Oh no, before we carry on, you also get one of Futaba's, I was going to say quick start manuals. I guess they are quick start manuals. To me, there's always bits missing from these, but we'll go through this today and we'll work out what it is. So, instruction manual, oh, there you go, measurements already on there for you if you are going to mount it. 10:2 by 44.8 is the holes. Ways of connecting it. Interesting to see it supports life on 2 cells or LiPo on 3 cells. So there must be a way of changing that. Automatic switching between the 2 batteries, and up to 18 high performance servos on PWM. A good point here, if the battery level is 40 to 30% or less, then the receiver will not turn on for safety. So part of the power up sequence is going to check the batteries for you. And if they are low, it's just not going to turn on. So be aware of that, because you might get caught out wondering why your model's not powering up, and it's because your bats are low. Quick way of how to link, I'll do all this for you in a minute, but you can link each receiver individually to your transmitter. I'll be using the T26SZ. Battery failsafe there. For receivers, I can set battery failsafe, set the battery to 4.8 or less. Make sure the receivers have the same settings as well. We'll take a look at that. And then just some extra information there. Whole bunch of precautions which I will check through. Wiring diagram there for those of you that are using electric. Just a reminder to pull out the red wire so that the ESC isn't powering the system as well. You don't want that. You want to make sure that's disconnected. Taking the red wire, just pull out the red cord out of the input there for the system before you connect it in, and then that will power into the back of the box there. 2 receivers going in, we'll see in a minute. Here's all your different battery configurations that we've seen already: 6.4, 10.2, 7.6, 9 volts, 11.4, 13 volts, and there's a voltage switch on the side, so be aware of that as well. You have to change the switch there. I'll be running on 7.6. Interesting enough, it's actually marked differently on the box. On here it says, get some focus, 11.1, 7.4 and 6.6. On there, 11.4, 7.6 and 6.4, slightly different. Okay, more configuration there. Talking about dual battery system. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff on the other side, just giving you some other ways. So you don't have to use dual receivers, you can just use a single receiver. I personally wouldn't, I'll probably always use dual. There's no point in having a system like this if you're just going to use a single receiver, but you can do it if you want to. Recommended gyro is the GYA553. There's plenty of videos on my YouTube channel about setting up the gyro, but we'll do this via this box. Main thing to note is you don't plug any servos into the gyro itself. All the servos will go through into DLPH-2, so I'll show you that working. And then another setup here of doing dual receivers and dual lipos. Then you can do some extra configuration by plugging this directly into the P port, I believe that's what it's called, on the back of the transmitter, into the ports on here, the SB2 port, to be able to get some extra settings to change the mode. So I believe you can use 2 of these together and you can change the mode. So the default is our output channels 1 to 16, DG1, DG2, and then I believe you can go into a second mode where then it will output 17 to 24. So you can get full 24 channels by using 2 of these in your aircraft. We won't be doing that, mainly because I only have 1. That is the only reason, I only have 1 today. But worth noting, you can do that if 16 channels isn't enough for you. And then here, it's just showing the different battery sequences, or different light sequences rather, during the startup. Sorry if that's shaking around a little bit. So different flashes to say what mode it's in, and so on and so forth. So let me get a test bench set up. Okay guys, so I've rigged up a quick test bench. Let me show you what I've done. So first off, as you can see, there's absolutely no expenses spared here with my piece of cardboard and my servos, but it serves a purpose. Servos are plugged in channels 1 to 7, and they're plugged in channels on here. So it starts 1 is the rightmost channel, although not the first socket. Bear in mind the first socket is reserved for S-bus. Then it goes 1 all the way through. Then you've got S-bus on the far end, and then your switch. So you have to make sure your switch is in the far left, otherwise it won't work. So don't make that mistake. It is labelled in the instructions. So just to be super clear, it goes S-bus, then channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth, all the way to here where you get to channel 17, 18, then S-bus 2, then the switch. Now channel 17 and 18 can be DG1 and DG2. Okay, just bear that in mind. Just start from the right hand side. Then on the back, we've got receiver 1 and receiver 2. That's nice and straightforward. If you're using electric, as in electric motor, you would plug your ESC into channel 3 here, not channel 3 here. has to go into the back here for channel 3, and remembering to pull out the red cable so you're not drawing power from the main flight packs for the ESC and for your motor into here. And then I've just got battery 1 and battery 2. Now, excuse these adapters, I would never do this inside a model, it's just all I had today. I would just make sure my battery had the right connector to plug directly into the DLPH-2 on both sides. I wouldn't use an adapter and another adapter, so on and so forth. Then I just have my 2 flight packs. These are 3500 batteries, LiPos 2S. And that's it. So it's on and it's working. I've done no configuration on the transmitter, with the exception of just binding 2 receivers, which you do in the normal way. So this is a new model. System type, I've just currently set it to fast test 18, changed the receiver to dual, and just linked each one individually. And while I was linking, I was making sure one was actually unplugged to make sure I was linking receiver 1 to receiver 1 and receiver 2 to receiver 2. And then everything's working. So elevator, 2 aileron servos on 1 and 6. Throttle is on 3. Rudder is on 4. Gears on a switch, which is 5. And then flaps on 7. And again, that's just same as always. Linkage menu, functions is how you can change your channel assignment here. As you can see, I've just gone through aileron 1, 2, elevator, throttle, rudder, gear, and flap on the left slider. So not very exciting. Well, that's kind of how you want it. It's just a case of plugging it in and it works. Now it is worth noting that out the box, so as you get this out the box, this is already set for dual receiver mode. Now if you want to change it to be a single receiver mode, or also tell it that you're going to add a gyro to it, you have to connect this to your transmitter, which we'll do in a minute, and then change the mode via the software on the transmitter. That's the only way to do it as far as I understand. And again, if you want to change this so that you have 2 of these together, this one going through to 1 to 16 channels and the other one going 17 to 24 channels, you have to change the second unit by connecting it directly to your transmitter in exactly the same way to tell it that the second unit is in mode 2 effectively. Okay, so now let's simulate a loss of receiver. So everything's working at the moment. I'm just going to unplug one of the receivers. Probably not the best way to do it, but it shows the point. There we go, everything is still working. And I'm going to unplug one of the batteries as well to simulate that that's been lost. And you see everything is still working as you'd expect. Redundancy. Okay, so that was pretty straightforward, wasn't it? It's just a case of plugging everything straight in and it worked. As long as you remember where the channel assignments are. Leave the first slot on the far right hand side, then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. always at the other end. It is clearly labelled in the instructions, in fairness. That's this on, I want to say on page 2, but on whatever page, it is clearly labelled there. That's what they are. So next thing we want to do, I guess, is to let's plug the transmitter directly into the DLPH-2 and see how easy it is to change the modes on it. And then we can set up a gyro. Okay, so I want to take a moment to show you something that I've just had a bit of trouble with, and that was getting the telemetry working for both of these batteries. Now first off, I was actually a couple of software revisions out of date. So if you go to system menu and transmitter, if you are using T26 or even the T16, but particularly on the T26, go to information. The latest version of software as of the time of recording this, which is March 2025, is 1.3E. I was on 1.1. E just stands for English, but I was on 1.1, not 1.3. So I've just downloaded the latest version, which I think might have been the issue. And now what you have to do to be able to get the telemetry is go into linkage menu, telemetry, and then go across to voltage, and it'll appear under voltage. You can see the battery and the external battery. That's the 2 different batteries here you've got plugged into the DLPH-2. I'll just demonstrate that by unplugging one of them. And you can see the top one there has dropped off, battery 1, and battery 2 is still working, and so are the servos. So just check that. Check you're in the right place, make sure you're on number 6 voltage. It's very similar on the 32MZ as well. Make sure you're there, and you'll then be able to set up your alarms and also change on your display here as well. If you want this to appear on your top display on this particular transmitter, just go into linkage, sub display, and you swap over to telemetry for the top display there. And there you go, there's the 2 batteries, both on 7.9 at the moment. So how it will work is the system will actually use the most charged battery and automatically swap over to the other battery as when it needs it, so they both drain down together. And then if it's below 30 or 40%, then you won't even be able to power up anyway, so be sure to check that. It's worth noting this paragraph here. So DLPH-2 is equipped with a telemetry sensor function, great. The receiver voltage display on the transmitter home screen is only a constant value. Voltages of battery 1 and 2 should be monitored by using the telemetry voltage, which is what I just about to show you. So the normal voltage, which up here it's saying for the RX is a constant value, hence why you need to go in and monitor them this way. Slightly odd, but it's to do with the device only needing 5 volts, I believe, and that's what that's actually reporting on. But to be able to get the extra information, you have to go in and set up your telemetry. Kind of makes sense. Okay, let's move on. Okay guys, to change the mode on the DLPH-2, we have to connect a cable into the port on the back of the transmitter, all the way into the DLPH-2. Now I made a mistake here, and it's taken me a good half an hour to work this out, because what you have to do is you have to plug it into the RX1 port. So I've disconnected both receivers, plugged the cable from the back of the transmitter, which you can just about see it here, into the RX1 port. Everything else is turned off, and then now I can turn it on, which I'll just do. And then when we go into system, DLPH-2, we can now read, and that's now reading using that wire the configuration on this box. So make sure both receivers are unplugged and your wire is an RX1, not SB2, which is where I had it. It's got to be an RX1, okay? Both batteries have been connected, that's absolutely fine. The device has to be turned on, that's fine. And then you'll be presented with this menu. Default setting is dual RX mode. You can change that to single receiver mode or airplane gyro mode, which is what we now want to do. When it's in airplane gyro mode, you can't change the PWM output mode anymore. You have to go back to dual receiver mode. Then you can actually set this box to 1724 if you're going to use 2 of these together in your aircraft. But I'm going to leave that on 116, and I'm going to change this to gyro mode. Worth noting this version number down here as well. I suspect there is a software update for this, but we're currently on version 1. So let's change this to airplane gyro mode. Let's do a write that configuration, and now we'll go ahead and plug in our gyro. Okay guys, it's time to plug the gyro in and get it working. Now, be warned, this is going to get slightly more complicated, as I've just found out for the last hour and a half when I've been playing around with it. So let me take you through it step by step. Okay, so we've got lots going on here and a few extra wires going on, and you see the gyro. So let me just explain. We've got the GYA553 gyro, which I believe is the only gyro the DLPH-2 is compatible with. That is now plugged in. Thing to note, you have to plug in the gyro cable, which is this one here, the blue wire, into the S bus on the DLPH-2. Okay, if you want to use the SB2, you can plug that in here, directly into SB2 as well, which I've done. And then I've also got the transmitter currently connected to the gyro, and I'll explain why that is in a minute. So this cable here, sorry, in P-box port, is currently so I can change the configuration on the gyro. So to change configuration on the DLPH-2, as we just saw, you have to plug into RX1, but then to go and configure the gyro, you have to plug into P-box port. So bear that in mind. Now the challenge you're going to get if you're doing this is when it comes to configuring the gyro, the default channels assignment for the gains you're probably already using, which is 578. You're probably using 578 down here already. So the gains are assigned to 578, you can't reassign them to the gyro. So when you turn this on for the first time, you probably find the servos are moving and you've got no control over the gyro. That's because you need to go and reassign the channels on the gyro, which is what we're about to do, and then you'll be able to set the gains on the transmitter to those channels, and they won't interfere with the channels down here. Bear with me, hopefully it'll start to make sense in a minute. I've been messing about with this for quite some time. So let's go to the transmitter, which, like I say, is already partly configured. So let's just go back a step. So in Aeroplane, page 2, gyro setting, hit start. And if you're wired incorrectly, it should read. And you can see that it's reading information here. If we go into the basic menu and go to S-Bus Basic, here are the gains that are currently conflicting with the channels that you currently have servos plugged into in your DLPH-2. So I'm going to change these gains to different channels. So rather than 5, I'm going to use 14, 15 and 16. Now I think you could, if you want to, just assign them all to one channel, but I'm just going to leave them separate at the moment. So now I've done that, I can come out of this menu, all the way out, all the way out, all the way out. So now we just proceed as normal, which if you've not done this gyro before, again, I have got videos on my channel. But let's go into linkage menu, function, and then now we can go and find those channels. (14, 15, 16). And I'm going to assign these to gyro, gyro 2, gyro 3. I'm going to assign the same switch, which is the SD switch, which I'll show you in a minute. SD, and now they shouldn't be conflicting. And now I'll go back into the main gyro settings. In here, you can see that I've assigned SD on here already. And I've set these to normal, and just for experiment, rate 30 on all of them and rate 60 on this one. And if I flick the switch, I'm now going between those. So now I'm hoping this should work. Okay, so I've removed the cable out of the back of the transmitter. I've removed it from the gyro, from the P-box port on the gyro, and everything is currently switched off. So if I turn on the transmitter, and now turn on the system, the DLPH-2, and just wait a second. Or two. And there you go, just initialized. So you will now see a delay while the gyro initializes the servos. That's perfectly normal when you start using this gyro. So if I move the sticks, everything is still moving. Ailerons, elevator, rudder, so on and so forth. I think it was that switch map. This is currently on off, so gyro is off. Now if I move it up, you'll see, I think you can see the lights here changing. And you notice if I simulate, so this is currently switch position 1, I'll put it up to switch position 3 rather, top position, because that's got the most gains on it. So if I simulate the aircraft movement by moving the gyro, you'll see these servos are moving. Bank, ailerons moving, elevator moving there, ailerons here, and rudder over here. Obviously I appreciate that's a little bit of a crude setup on my cardboard here, but hopefully you get the point in there. So basically just make sure you've got the gyro plugged in to this port down here, which is your S-Bus 2 port, into the S-Bus 2 on the bottom here. I've also plugged in this one here straight through to SB2, and then the only other thing that's going to catch you out is just changing those gain channels. And again, that was done via, once it's all connected, in the gyro settings menu, you have to press start, then you can reassign those from 578 to another channel which is free, and then back into linkage, into functions, and then make sure you map them to the appropriate switch here. 14, 15, 16 is what we previously assigned. auto gyro. It's a shame it doesn't say gyro aileron, gyro elevator, gyro rudder. It just doesn't. It's 0, 2, 3, or gyro, sorry, 2, 3 on the same switch. And then in your regular gyro menu, down here, you can assign the switch to each of the positions here. So each of the rates, 2, 3, and then as you flick that switch, you should see it changing as to what you're on. So this is effectively gyro off for me because I've got everything set to 0. Then medium amount of gain. Again, you can change these, don't have to all be the same. They correspond gyro, gyro 2, gyro 3, or high up here, 60, 60, 60. And that is it. But that took me an hour and a half to work out. You're welcome. All jokes aside, I think we're good. Guys, I hope that's helped you. I mean, I've learned quite a lot there. I've been playing for this now for the last 3.5 hours, and I like it. I like the simplicity of it. It was a little bit tricky to get that gyro working, I won't lie there. And it was a little bit tricky to connect the transmitter initially to the DLPH-2 to change it into that gyro mode. So remember, you've got 3 modes there: single receiver, dual receiver, or with gyro, and you've got to be the appropriate one, especially if you want to use that gyro. And the gyro there is the GYA553. So I wanted to say a massive shout out to Model Shop Leeds, who have actually supported me in this video. They have provided the DLPH-2 so I could film the setup for you guys, and then I'll be returning it to them shortly. So please check out their website down below. I'll link this product there. If you're going to buy one, please use them. If you want the gyro as well, they also stock all Futaba accessories. So I'm happy with that. I'm not going to be putting this in a model, mainly because all my models are set up and I don't want to rip out the configuration. But I'm pretty happy with what we've learned today. I'm pretty happy with how it works. I don't think I've missed anything. If you think I have, just leave a comment down below. If you can go and try one of these out, please also leave a comment down below. Guys, thank you very much. I'll see you next time around.